Thanks. I got out and I didn't have a job right away. I worked a bunch of part-time jobs until something opened up. And that's the way that it goes sometimes. Sometimes you graduate and there's not a job waiting for you right away, and you got to do whatever you can to make ends meet. But then some doors opened up. I got back at KSU, and I was there from May of 05 to 2013. Now, when I transitioned out into something that I really didn't have a lot of experience in, and that was doing online marketing for a software development company. But they were impressed by what I had built with my radio program and the ways that I had marketed it across the country and around the world. And so doors opened there. I didn't think that there were doors that could open up outside of radio, but that's just another thing, like, you never know what could happen. So keep your focus broad, because you never know what might happen. But I was at that software company for about 1.5 years. And last year, I started my own practice of coaching and mentoring musicians, using my experience from the radio program that I built and continue to run. And I also have a couple of marketing clients that I do social media and online marketing for. But I'm very picky about doing that kind of thing, because it's so broad in what you can do. But that's a little background about me, and I want to just give you that perspective, because I went to school thinking that I was only going to do one thing, and that I was wasting a lot of my time by taking all these silly classes that didn't matter. And in hindsight, I wish I would have paid more attention to a lot of the classes that I didn't think really mattered, but I was too narrow focused on this one thing that I thought was going to be my entire life. And I think we're living in an age now where we don't do one thing for all of our lives. My dad's worked at the same company or in the same industry for 40 years. And I'm 33 years old, and I've already been in 3 industries. Probably will dive into another couple in the next 10 years, and by the time I retire, I don't even know if our generation, my generation, your generation is going to have that retirement that our parents or grandparents did, because there's always new things to do. We're living a whole lot longer, and the same security things that happen when you turn 65 don't exist like they used to. That's a way big picture, but just a good perspective to have. That it's okay to change. It's okay for new doors to open up that you didn't see coming. And to go down some pathways that you might not have considered before. So I put all that out there to open up kind of a Q&A on what it means to be a small business owner, what it means to really start something brand new from scratch that didn't exist before, and what that process looks like. And if it's okay, I'm just going to kind of go through these questions, and I'm going to say your name because I have it. And if you'll just raise your hand so I know who you are. That'll help me a lot. Okay. Connor Matheson.
Connor's in the online class, so you can speak to him on the video.
Connor Matheson, good to see you, man. Okay, his question is, who influenced you most on your professional journey? I can't put one person on that, and I don't think anybody that has achieved anything can say that there's just one person that's been an influence to them. From a radio standpoint, one of the things that helped me excel really well and really high from a starting point as a freshman onward and then into my professional career was learning how to do really good interviews with people. And that's something that I really built my name around. That's something that really helped me get really far in public radio, which is what KSU is. The programming is a combination of news, music, and information. And so I used to do a lot of stories and a lot of special segments with people that were really, really interesting. I did a lot of interviews with classical musicians. I'm a musician, but I'm not a classical musician. If you're a classical musician, you're very particular about your instrument, and in some ways you're kind of snobby, and by your own admission, because you've gone through years and years and years of music school. You've been playing the same instrument since you were 2. Before you knew how to talk, you could play a piano. And because of that intricate, detailed training, those people are very particular about their instrument, and they really usually only sync well when they're being asked questions from a music professional. I did a lot of research and read a lot of stuff and tried to not fake my way through it, but at least be able to approach those individuals and those professionals from the standpoint of, I understand where you're coming from. Let me ask you challenging questions or thought-provoking questions that really dive into what is your craft. And so from a influential perspective, Scott Simon, who hosts Weekend Edition on NPR, was probably the biggest professional influencer that I had. I still to this day, I try to make my sound and my journalism sound like, feel like, look like, and draw the audience in the way that Scott Simon does. I hope that answers that question. Christian Flanders. Hey, Christian. Thanks for asking your 2 questions. In your opinion, how has social media and the technological development of the past decade impacted how new artists market themselves compared to 10 years ago? Man, it has changed everything. And here's why. There was already a gigantic swath of people that were making music all the time, but they didn't have all the different places to get their name out. And now that there's not even like just, we always, in online marketing, we reference the big 3 social media channels: Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And it's even hard to consider YouTube a social media channel, but it is. That doesn't include Instagram or Dig, or I saw this infographic that had just a smattering of all of the big ones, and there was like 25 of them on there, and some of them I never really heard of before. And that's just the big ones. There's social networks that are popping up all over the place, and each one of them has their own different communities and groups of people that are on them. So to answer your question, man, there are all these platforms and outlets for people to put themselves and their content and their music out there all the time. So the marketing possibilities are so much greater. Now, what that does on the downside for them and for businesses that are doing the same thing is you've got so much volume in such a tight spot, because there's still a limited number of people that you're going to be able to reach. And this is really important marketing, because it's kind of a mistake that I made early on. When I created the Appetizer, I wanted to make a music show for people that wanted to listen to real music. I was really bored with the crap that was on the radio. And I'm just going to call it that. It's crap. It's the same. I'm sorry if I've offended anybody in here that listens to Top 40, or if Taylor Swift is your favorite artist, or Katy Perry. They have talent and they're good, that's fine. But I don't want to listen to their 3 songs all day, every day, and that's what radio is doing. I wanted to create a show that played unsigned and independent artists. At the time, that wasn't heard on any radio station other than in big markets. So that was kind of the platform I went down. But I was making a program that I thought was for everybody, and I didn't have the vision to see that really there's a group of people, there's a niche of a niche of a niche that I need to be shooting for. And so to answer your social media question, Christian, it's changed things so dramatically because people are putting their stuff out there everywhere, but they're not focusing their energies on where they actually need to be going. The people that know who their audience is and the type of audience that they're trying to reach, and that's the people that they go after, they have more success than people that are just trying to shoot everything out in the wind and hope that somebody grabs onto it. But 75 to 90% of musicians are going the shotgun route instead of the focused route. And then your second question was, has the impact overall been positive or negative for the music scene and new artists? Here's what I think. I'm going to show both sides. The positive effect is that you have a greater opportunity to build a community of people that some of which you might have the opportunity to meet in real life and some of which you might not. But either way, you have this opportunity to grow a community around your artistry, around your creation, around your product. And that is what marketing as a whole is all about. You're trying to enrich your market and enrich the field and industry that you're in with your creative offering, and you're trying to get that into the hands of the people that you made it for. But that is a community of people, that is not the world. The positive side of social media is you have this opportunity to bring people into your community that you're building around your product line, around your specific offering, and nurture and grow that relationship. The downside of that, the big thing is you have to go through this process sometimes of bringing people in and then kind of weighing how serious they really are about stuff. And there is no like, you know, step A, you do this, step B, you do this, step C, you do this, that applies to everybody all the time. It is a process, and it is something you have to figure out. But there's positives and negatives to it. I would say that there's more positives than there are negatives, because this beats the crap out of writing zillions of letters that you put in the mail, trying to send stuff out to all kinds of outlets and media and whatnot, hoping that somebody will respond to them, then hoping the people that respond to them will respond to you. This kind of makes things a little bit more efficient if you do it the right way. Did I answer your question? Okay, good. David Diamond. Hey, good to meet you, David. I like your name. I do not have anything to do with the Putumayo music label, nor do I have anything to do with the Putumayo program. My show airs before the Putumayo World Music Hour. That is the program is associated with the company, and I'm not sure exactly where they're based out of, but they've got spread all over the world, and they do. They've got Putumayo hubs. They've got one for the Americas, one for South America, and then they've got hubs within South America that cover all the different countries and then through continents and all that stuff.
That question just came from about the time I moved here and found the radio station. I discovered them and you at the same time. I've got a really crappy memory.
Well, there's a guy in town named Thurman Meters, I think is his name. I know his first name's Thurman. But he does a program with education and with schools, where he goes into the schools and he teaches kids about it's education through music. And he has wrapped his whole presentation and his whole platform around the Putumayo method of radio and listening and tapping into different cultures and incorporating that into his presentation. I can give you his information if you're interested in that, but okay. Misty Hogger? Hogger. Okay. You would like to know if there is a way someone who has an idea for a business, yes, I like this question, could find out if their idea is even marketable. Someone fresh out of college with little working capital will probably not have the resources to invest in market studies to determine if there's a market for what they want to do. Is there an economic way of finding this out before they invest everything in a business that may be doomed to failure? Okay. You've asked several questions here. And you've asked questions within questions, so I'm going to try to answer all of them. I'm going to start with the last question. There are some successful entrepreneurs. A lot of them have been on Shark Tank. Do you guys watch that show at all? Okay, great show. Who invest everything that they have into their product or into their company, or they refinance their house the second or third time, or they sacrifice their kids' college savings or whatever. You know, they make these ridiculous sacrifices because they really believe in their product and what it is that they're trying to do. And there's something positive to be said about that. But from the Shark Tank panel, I think Barbara Corcoran's probably one of the only ones that's actually like, she had nothing and she put everything in there and it worked out for her. Now she is a different type of entrepreneur. She's and what she was doing several decades ago built up an experience level so where she could kind of make that in the market that she was in, knowing the knowledge. She kind of had insight. I don't know how much of her story you know. She took a risk and bought her partner out right before, and her timing was perfect. But she went into this one side of real estate in New York, and she kind of had a suspicion that things were going to start to shift. And within weeks after her change, things shifted, and she profited big off of that. The risk on on the outside was, holy crap, she could lose everything. But I think she knew enough that, like, even if things didn't go the way she thought that they would, she would still end up okay. So it wasn't, I don't want to say it wasn't as big of a risk, but I think things were going to be profitable for her anyways. But all of that to say that the thought of investing everything you have into your company, I think is kind of a foolish risk to take, because there's so much to lose, and even in an ideal world, if everything goes perfectly, your gain doesn't end up paying off until a period of time. So I've invested a lot into my various businesses and myself. My wife has her own company. We've invested a lot in her stuff, but we've never invested everything because there's just too much to lose. But that's my perspective. Is there an economic way of finding out if your idea is marketable? Absolutely. You have a myriad of resources right here at this university, I would imagine, through your various professors and your department heads, that as a student, I don't want to speak on behalf of McMurry, but I would imagine that as a student who is paying a tuition to come here and learn how to be a professional one day, you should have the right, or at least the access to some professional educators who will at least listen to your idea and give you their perspective. That perspective could be worth as much as an investment or a non-investment. Probably worth more than just, a stranger or whatever. If you guys don't know about the SBDC in Abilene, the Small Business Development Center, it's located, their new offices are, I don't even know what that area is called. Whatever that section where Copper Creek and Prime Time on the Loop, there's that whole development. I think there's a Cisco campus over there, and there's a series of buildings back on that side of the road. But they've got 2 or 3 buildings back there. But the Small Business Development Center is a Texas Tech small business resource house, and it's a free service to anybody that lives in Abilene. You go in there, they'll actually help you write your business plan, they'll help you write your marketing plan, they'll help walk you through the process of creating your business from the standpoint of getting all of your paperwork filed with the government and all that good stuff. It's a great resource if you're actually looking to start a business in the near future, but speaking with them about your idea would be a fantastic resource. And what they're probably going to do is ask you some questions that you don't have answers to, and that's good, because that gives you something to go back. And like I said at the beginning, we always start with ideas for what we think we want to do, but it's when we take ourselves in the process and we dive into, lack of a better analogy here in West Texas, if we keep drilling down until we find the real oil that we're looking for instead of settling for the water that we think it is that we want, that's where you get what it is you're looking for. And then, sorry man, Christian's idea about social media. You've got an outlet of contacts within your own social circles where you can have conversations with people and ask them, would this be something you'd be interested in, and just get their feedback. You can create surveys online to do the same thing and just get people's feedback. I mean, there's all sorts of different ways because that way you're tapping into potential clients, consumers, to see what the real need is. But yeah, there's all kinds of free outlets. So before you start investing a ton of money into something, you feel like I answered your question? Okay, good. Kristen DeFrance. DeFrance or DeFrance? DeFrance, okay. You have 3 questions and you say, can I answer all 3 of them? I think most questions are good. Not most of your questions. I think most questions in general are good. There are stupid questions. Has anybody ever said there's no stupid questions? Anybody ever told you that? They're wrong. There are stupid questions. Because when you hear a stupid question, you're like, oh, that's the dumbest question. Watch sports, the after game when they're interviewing the people, how did it feel to score a touchdown? Well, there's a blanket answer that's going to cover that every single time. It doesn't matter whether or not it was a 72-0 score or whether or not they won by 2 points. How did it feel to score a touchdown? It felt pretty good. Sorry, there's dumb questions. What is the hardest part about starting your own business? I think the hardest part is actually starting the business. Because it's a risk, and we were just talking about that a minute ago. You know there's a financial risk, you know there's a time risk involved, and there's always that question in the back of their mind which is this really going to work? And it doesn't really matter how many people have told you, I totally want whatever it is you have. If you'll make 1 million of those, I'll be your customer for life. You always question yourself whether or not it's going to work out in the end. So actually taking that first step forward and committing to starting the business and working it forward, that's the hardest part. Figuring out what it is you want to do and how you want to do it, those are all difficult things, but the commitment to starting and the commitment to the process is really the hard part. One of the toughest things, I had a conversation with a client last night. One of my music clients is in Canada, and he is about to finish his album, and he wants to do a whole bunch of different things. But we got to this part of the conversation where I was like, okay, you're contemplating investing a ton of money in this one little bitty thing over here that is a part of the big picture, but this getting done right here, once it was $10,000 that he was contemplating investing in his recording. He was going to go back and have his whole thing re-recorded. He was going to dump $10,000 in it, which you can do, and that's fine. But you get the record done, and now you have a record. You don't have a record that has any distribution. I'm sorry, man, I keep moving around. You don't have a record that has any distribution. You just have a master copy. And you've got $10,000 in this master copy, and it can be the most amazing record that anybody's ever heard. It could be the Beatles' White Album. Or if you guys don't listen to the Beatles, favorite band, name a band you like, throw something out there at me, other than Blank Stares.
Jimmy Buffett.
Jimmy Buffett. What was his best album?
I couldn't tell you.
Okay.
I like that.
Okay. It could be the Beatles, it could be Jimmy Buffett, it could be, anybody listen to Bon Iver? Yeah, okay. Brandi Carlile, she's got a new one coming out if y'all like singer-songwriter, folk with an incredible voice. It could be the greatest album ever. It could have the best songwriting, best musicianship, all that stuff. But you've got $10,000, which is a lot of money for anybody, unless you're the guy that made Facebook. I can't think of his name. Zuckerberg. That is all invested in this little product that doesn't have any distribution. There's this whole other part of the process, which is marketing and promotion and distribution and sales and touring and there's all this other stuff that hasn't even been looked at. But chances are you've blitzkrieged whatever budget it is that you were going to set aside to do this big part so that you could do this little part over here. And so all that to say that there's a process from starting your business to the end goal that you want after 12 months. And then once you get to that point, you set new goals for what you want to do in the next 12 months. The commitment to this thing, that's the hardest part. Starting here and being committed to at least taking your idea to a certain place and a certain point in time in the future and sticking with it through the good, the bad, the ugly, the upside down, that's the hardest part. Does that answer your question? Okay. Your second question was this: do musicians usually contact you, or are you the one who has to seek out new talent? Okay, this goes back to Christian's question in some ways, because with all these different marketing channels through social media that are out there, A lot of musicians feel like all they have to do is create this one little bitty thing and then send it out to everybody, and my job's done. Just wait for them to tell me I'm gonna be heard, and the checks will start rolling in, and it's all gonna be good. I get stuff all the time, both through email, which I don't prefer, music submission stuff through online platforms, and my preference is to get stuff in the mail. I like going to my mailbox and opening my mailbox, I've got a P.O. box and I've got a regular mailbox, and getting packages and reading press releases and reading about artists and seeing their pictures and having that engagement, and then popping their disc into my player and deciding whether or not they're worth investing in from a playing standpoint. NPR Music, which is the pinnacle of public radio music platforms, that's their process. They don't accept anything digitally. So I've got on my website, if you want to submit something for airplay, send us a disc, send us this. I've got a small contract that basically just gives me permission to play their music. When I get response back from people that say, well, I don't want to fill out your contract, why should I have to do that? Why can't I just email it? All these other people let me email. Like, yes, those other people have their standards, I have mine. But that's the way NPR does it, and I figure that's a pretty good model for me to base my stuff off of. To answer your question again, once you know you've got something, you can compare yourself to other people. You can follow their models. If their models are working for them, that means that you can do it too. So NPR's got a great model, and I've got some relationships and networks within KUT Austin, which is the biggest public radio, probably the biggest public radio station other than, what is that, KTX in Dallas, and all of Texas. And yeah, so I get stuff in the mail, I get stuff submitted to me. There's times when I go looking for people, but for the most part it comes in. It just, for me, it's a matter of taking the time to listen to things. But what makes it easy for me is I have built some really good relationships and connections with people that do radio promotion really well. And so when they send me stuff, I absolutely listen to it. And then if I don't end up liking it, okay, well that one didn't work. But there's a handful of 10 names that if something comes in the mail and I see their name on it, I can almost slap money on a table and say, this is going to be good. I have no idea who that is, but it came from Jesse, it came from JB, it came from Andy, it came from Eric. These guys shoot, 90%. That's going to be good, and I'm mostly going to be right. But does that answer your question? Okay. What's the best part of my job? Which job?
How many jobs do you have?
That's a good question. I'll tell you the best part of each of my jobs. How's that? The best part of the radio job is getting to meet people and interact with people that I either otherwise wouldn't have connection to, and that's both musicians and people in the community. I've gotten to meet and interview and have conversation with some very successful individuals that I wouldn't have had access to otherwise. I just would have been sitting on the sidelines going, oh, this is a cool story. I wonder what they'd be like to have a cup of coffee with or whatever. So the radio side of things has given me that outlet.